Hey friends, it's been a fun couple of weeks as I've celebrated my birthday. I have gone book shopping more than once. So I wanted to share with you guys my book haul. Recently I spent a day out. I went to 2 different bookshops. One of them I hadn't been to in years. It's called Dixon Street Books in Fayetteville, Arkansas. And I loved it. Here's a little bit of footage from that day. After that I came up to Tawnytown, which is near Springdale, Arkansas, just a couple of minutes up the road north. And so I went to my favorite bookshop of all time there, which is called Once Upon a Time Books. I love it. They always have the neatest stuff there at really good prices, and I'm always finding awesome gems. In fact, there is a book there right now that I want so bad. It's a cookbook illustrated by Tasha Tudor, and I think the recipes actually are hers as well, and it is signed, it's autographed by her. And I went in there on the day that I went out book shopping, and I almost bought it, and then I didn't because I'm cheap, and I thought, how many novels could I buy for the price of this cookbook? And it was a lot, so I gave it up, but I would sure love to have that. Anyway, I want to share with you guys what it is that I chose. Okay, so the first shop that I went to, the Dixon Street Books in Fayetteville, that shop would take days, a week maybe, to actually see everything in it. There are thousands, hundreds of thousands of books in that shop. So I just kind of browsed around. I didn't even really have a purpose. I just was wandering. And I had a really great time looking around in there, but I'm definitely going to have to go back because I have not seen even close to everything there. But here's some of the things I got there. This first one is called the Mayfair Bookshop. This is by Eliza Knight. So this is kind of a dual timeline novel about Nancy Mitford, a British authoress. And I have heard of her, but don't really know anything about her and have not read anything from her. So I am looking forward to reading this. So 1938 and then present day are the 2 timelines in this one. So that one will be a fun one to read. I love reading stories about bookshops. Next, I picked up this book illustrated by Kate Greenaway. She's one of my favorite illustrators. And it looks like this is just a book of poems. In fact, it looks very similar to the one that I have had since I was a little girl, that are Mother Goose rhymes, I think, nursery rhymes. Anyway, some of the illustrations and rhymes look similar, but I love her Regency Georgian era illustrations. But you know, as a kid I didn't realize that that was the era that she was illustrating. But once I started studying Jane Austen and, you know, hanging out in Bath a little bit, I could recognize it. I especially like this one, and I don't know if you guys can see that very well, but this one is actually looks like it's based on a Georgian or Regency era comic. So these are fun. Anyway, this goes in my Kate Greenaway collection. Alright, next is a book from one of my very favorite authors, Peter Ackroyd. I read everything he puts out. He writes a lot about England and London in general, and he just, I don't know, he's thorough and he's fun and interesting and doesn't sound like, you know, and he's just not, you know, clinical about things. But this book is called Albion, The Origins of the English Imagination. So just all about England and its cultural aspects. It covers the whole of English cultural history and by inheritance American sensibility, from its roots in the Anglo-Saxon period through the centuries to our own times. It talks all about the Anglo culture, literature, painting, music, architecture, philosophy, science. Basically, it looks like the ultimate Anglophile book. So I'm going to enjoy that. This one, obviously I was hanging out in the England aisle. This one is called Lost Country Life by Dorothy Hartley. And it says how English country folk lived, worked, threshed, thatched, rolled fleece, milled corn, brewed mead. Basically, this is how English country people lived back in the day, and probably some of them still do. So there's just some interesting instructions here. This is about making tallow, and this is like a sheep's bladder or something for making haggis. So that'll be fun to read about. The effect of the Black Death on sheep farming. This talks about smoking out bees. I don't know, it's just fun stuff. It's just interesting to me. So we're gonna read that one. And then finally from that shop I got this one called Hidden Corners of Britain by David Heaton. And this is a book just about different places in England. Kind of like a little book that describes places that we're not necessarily familiar with, and tells the stories about them, like the legends surrounding them. This one is the Tissington Well, and just over on this page is talking about Maid Marian. Here's Donington Castle, and there's just a bunch of different places in here that we might not necessarily be familiar with if we are not actually from England, but they are sort of obscure but sort of cool also, right? I would love to just spend so much time in the South Downs and everywhere else, but obviously my life is here, and so I can live vicariously through books like this. This is a font that is like a baptismal font that is at Burnham, and I've seen one of those in Winchester Cathedral. So anyway, this will be fun. Looking forward to reading that. So that is what I got from the shop in Fayetteville, the Dixon Street Books. If you're over there, check it out. And then, like I said, I went up north about 10 minutes to the Town shop, Once Upon a Time Books, and there I got, you know, most of the things in this pile. Well, 3 of them are things that I've already read. So I went in the shop, and every time I go in there, they have things just switched around just a little bit. They do that for people like me, I'm assuming, that can't stay away and we need something new to see. but this time she had a row, double-sided rack of books that were all literary fiction. And I thought, what a great idea, because there are some people who because I personally sift through fiction. I don't like a lot of just mainstream sort of fiction, just kind of, I don't know, beach reads, chick lit sort of stuff. I don't really like that. I like to read literary fiction and I'm probably going to do a whole video on this, but it's basically just a little deeper, right? And I don't really know in this moment how to describe it without sounding like a snob, but it's just kind of meatier and a little deeper. It's something that you wouldn't just read while you are, you know, on the plane or, you know, somewhere where there's a lot of distractions. It's something that you really need to kind of think about, something that you really need to feel deeply, just kind of a deeper writing style than, you know, something that I might choose if I was just gonna kind of like hang out at the beach for the day and wanting to relax and read something sort of fluffy and frivolous. So I visited the literary fiction shelf and was delighted on all of the wonderful titles there. So I chose 5. So the first one, Shadow of the Wind, Carlos Ruiz Zafón. I totally love this series. Shadow of the Wind series, again, takes place in a bookshop. And I haven't read these in quite a while, probably maybe 7 or 8 years. So I'm looking forward to these again. There is a whole series, but I just grabbed the first one and figured that once I get into them again, I will order the rest. Next, well, I'll save that one for the last because that one's the best one. Okay, next, The Bean Trees. This is Barbara Kingsolver. Now, I can remember, I'm gonna have to see when this one came out. Yeah, 1988. So I can remember discovering Barbara Kingsolver when I was probably a junior or senior in high school. And this is probably the first like adult book that I read, you know, that wasn't just like some crazy romance that I stole off of my mom's bookshelf, but the first adult book that I really read and contemplated about and understood and thought through. And I don't know what it is about this story of Taylor and Turtle, but I really loved it. And over the years, since I graduated high school almost 30 years ago, I have picked up this book. And I don't know, it's something that I love. It's not even my normal genre and things that I'm even interested in. In this story, Taylor buys a VW and heads west. She ends up in Arizona. I think her car breaks down, and there's a little American Indian girl there named Turtle, and they end up sort of building a life together. And I don't know, something about it. I love this book. So pick that up to read again. It's been probably 12 years or more. And then I found Pigs in Heaven, which is the kind of a sequel to this story of Turtle and Taylor. And this one's a little bit more about Turtle, so read that one. And again, another Peter Ackroyd. This one's called English Music, and this is a fiction story that he wrote. It says, motherless, friendless, yet gifted with the most extraordinary psychic powers, Timothy Harcombe has quite literally a magical childhood. In post-World War I London, on the stage of the obscure chemical theatre, Timothy and his father perform acts of spiritual healing on England's forgotten, despairing working folk. Outside the theatre, Timothy's waking dreams envelop him in the creations of William Blake and Charles Dickens, Thomas Mallory and Daniel Defoe, Thomas Gainsborough and J.M.W. Turner. But when Timothy is torn away from his father and shunted off to his grandparents' home in the country, he suffers a wound to his psyche that may never heal. So I am going to give this a chance. I have only ever read nonfiction from Peter Ackroyd, but I have faith that this is going to be good. And then lastly, when I saw Time and Again, I actually gasped out loud and I said, yes! I was so happy to find this. This is a really great story. It's a time travel story and it has a few little illustrations in it. But it's basically the story of this guy who travels back to 1882 from New York. So it says, did illustrator Cy Morley really step out of his 20th century apartment one night, right into the winter of 1882? The US government believed it, especially when Cy returned with a portfolio of brand new sketches and tintype photos of a world that no longer existed. Or did it? I love this story. And again, this isn't a normal genre for me, but I read this probably 15 years ago or a little bit more, and I don't know, it's just such a good story because there's so much history. There are original photographs of New York in the 1880s. Let me see if I can find one. Yeah, here we go. And it's just such a fun story with a lot of history, a lot of detail, and it just puts you in that place. So when I found it, I was so excited, and like I said, I gasped out loud because I've been looking for it for a long time. I used to own it, and I don't know what I did, got rid of it during a move or something. And so I was happy to find it, and then when I went to pay, the girl working the counter was like, oh, that's the best book. And so we had to, do a little fangirling over Jack Finney for a minute. But it's a really good story, and there actually is a sequel called From Time to Time, which I didn't enjoy as much, but it's okay. That's what I got, guys. That is my book haul. It was a super fun time, and I love book shopping. I am super addicted. The thrill of the hunt. And now to make time to read them all. I hope everybody's having a good day. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.